Hello and welcome to the Travelling Through podcast. I'm your host Emma, and generally each week I'm out and about chatting to Londoners who love, live and work in this big and glorious city. It is also an excuse for me to reconnect with many of those who had a connection to my bookshop, which sadly closed in June 2019. This is the first episode of 2022. So welcome and Happy New Year. 2 days before New Year, I met up with Holly Worton. Holly is an author, podcaster, a publishing strategist, a personal and business coach, a long-distance walker, an ultra-marathon runner, a lover of nature, and a trainee druid. Despite all these things going on in her life, I was able to bring her down to a slow enough walk and talk pace to podcast chat with her as we walked across the muddy paths of the North Down Way. Enjoy. Okay, everyone, welcome to the Travelling Through podcast, and I'm here today with Holly Worton. Hello, Holly.
Hello, I'm so excited. I've never done a walking podcast
Have
before.
You not?
No.
Well, it's going to be a bit windy, so hopefully once we get into the forest bit, it'll be not so windy for us. But and we were lucky we caught in between the showers of this morning when it was pouring down.
Yes.
And the sun has come out for us, so we're very lucky. And we've met at your proposed place, which is Denby's Hillside.
Yes.
And I had a quick look in the map just because I just needed to orientate myself. So as far as I could work out, Polesden, Lacey and National Trust to the north.
Yes.
And to the south, it's the Pilgrim Way, which is now the North Downs Way.
Yes. And then if you can see right there, can you see that break in the hillside where there's kind of a tower-looking thing?
Oh, yes.
That's
Leith
Hill Tower, and that's the highest point in southeast England.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Because as I drove this way, usually I'm on foot or with my bicycle, but I borrowed some wheels to get here. You come into what's known as Surrey's area of outstanding beauty. Oh, Surrey Hills, that's right. And it certainly is fantastic, isn't it?
Yes, I love it here. I love it. There's so many trails. I mean, I walk out of my house and I can go in any direction and I've got trails. Wonderful.
And is the North Downs Way your influence for walking? Or your love of walking?
That's a really good question. I've never walked the entirety of the North Downs Way. This is kind of my running grounds. Okay. And it was my walking grounds when I first moved to Dorking. Because from my house, I'm only maybe less than a half an hour to this trail. Probably more like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of running and walking here, but I've never hiked or run the entire thing.
Okay.
Next year, however, I will be running the North Downs Way 100, which is a 100-mile race that goes along the North Downs Way.
Crikey, and that's a continuous race? So how long would that take you?
Well, there's a cut-off time of 30 hours, so hopefully it will take me less than 30 hours.
Yes, and hopefully it's not like this underfoot where it's muddy and mushy, because that would be extremely difficult to run in.
It's in August, and my husband actually attempted it last year, but the weather was terrible. It was about what it was this morning, except in August, and the trail was worse than this.
Oh gosh.
So many people did not finish that race.
Oh, I'm not surprised. And
It was incredible. It was like 40% DNF'd.
Yes. Did your husband finish?
No, he did not. He did 100 kilometers, and then we were in the middle of the night, and he had a lot of back pain, probably from sliding around the trail all day. Yeah. And he decided not to go on.
Yes. Very wise. Put it off for another year. Yes. Is life really worth it? You know?
Well, there comes to a point where, you've got to decide.
Yes.
How much do I want to do this? All right.
Perfect. So we just come through a gate, a kissing gate, as they call it, with wires attached. Anyway, we survived that.
I don't think there'll be any more for a while, so we're good.
But Holly, just to introduce you to my listeners, to the podcast listeners, you are an author.
Yes.
And you're a publishing strategist.
Yes.
You're also a podcaster.
Yes.
And an author of many books, in fact.
25
books.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of books. So you've been very prolific on the writing front, which we will discuss as we walk and talk. But you're also into trail running.
Yes.
Ultra-marathon running. I think it's probably different, isn't it, to trail running?
Well, most ultra-marathons are on trails, so you can kind of combine the two.
Okay, all right. And then walking, obviously.
Yes.
And you're also a member of the order of bards, ovates and druids,
Yes.
which I think is fascinating.
Yes.
But in some way, when I was finding out about you, I was just having a little Google about you, I realised that there were a lot of connections between everything that you do.
Yeah.
So let's start with, we've come into the woods now.
Yes.
And I know around here there are meant to be ancient woods, but I don't know whether that's just on the Polesden Lacey side there's an ancient wood.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So towards that way, as you say, towards Polesden Lacey, near West Humble, there's an old woodland of yews that's called Druids Grove.
Okay.
And it's got lots of ancient yews in there. Box Hill also has a lot of yews, so...
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And they're all part of the National Trust
Yes.
ground, aren't
Yes.
they? So this is, for some of the listeners who may be from overseas, this is parts of land that have been bought or acquired to or donated
Yes.
to the National Trust to keep it safe and keep it as areas of outstanding beauty, really,
Yes.
protecting
Yes.
it. And actually Beatrix Potter, who was one of the first to really influence
Oh,
the National Trust, and
I didn't know that.
because she bought a number of farms up in the Lake District
Oh, nice.
area, and that's how I believe it all
Yeah.
began.
I love
As
the
such.
National Trust.
They have a lot of properties, don't they?
Yes, yes.
So thankfully, because it means they're under our protection, under protection
Yes.
from developments, and especially when you've got a lot of ancient woods and
Yes.
parks and hillsides.
Yes.
But so where are we walking today? We're walking along the North Down.
So we're walking along the North Downs Way westward.
Which used to be part, as I read, also part of the Pilgrim's Way.
Yes, so a lot of the Pilgrim's Way kind of coincides with the North Downs Way. Not all of it, but a lot of it, especially in this area.
Okay. And something also I realised that we might just have to slow down because
Yes.
so I'm going to be like sliding and the cables are going to go.
It's a tough trail today.
It is. One thing I realised was that the way we met had a connection to the bookshop when I had the bookshop. And that was, we both were on a similar walk that was organised by Adam Wells.
Were we?
Yeah, so, and that was a
Oh,
walk
wow.
when it was back in 2015,
Yep.
which I think was when you were about to do a long distance walk somewhere.
Yes, that South Downs Way, my first long distance walk.
Yes. And how did that go?
Well, that was the source of my first walking book. It went really well, but it was also more challenging than I'd anticipated. It was my first time of hiking with a big backpack, and I don't think I was carrying too much, but I hadn't trained with a big pack on.
Okay.
So I just, my feet hurt all the time, and there were some ups and downs. There were some tears. There were lots of blisters.
And were you camping outside?
No, I was staying at B&B's. I was doing it the nice and easy way.
Yes.
And still, it was a bit more challenging than I expected. So I re-walked the trail in 2020? Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Or 2019. I don't know.
Before-
About 5 years later, I re-walked it.
Yes.
And it was a totally different experience.
Was it? Because you've
Because I have experience.
Yes.
You know, I know to take breaks more often. I know that I don't need to rush to get to my B&B in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I just knew how to handle myself better.
And did you carry a lot less because of...
No, not really.
No?
I think I was pretty good with my packing from the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is it about walking a trail that attracts you to do this, and to do this alone also?
I would say it's really nice to walk a trail to completion from point to point. It's very satisfying.
Yes.
And it's a nice, we live in such a small country. The trails are really accessible.
Yes.
You know, it's not like the United States where you have to walk like 6 months if you want to do an entirety of a trail. So I just think we're very blessed here with the variety of trails and also the length. It's very accessible to a lot of people. I just find it really satisfying to walk a nice long distance trail.
And are you an all-weather walker, or are you a
Yes.
fair-weather walker?
No, I used to be a fair weather walker, and then I realized that my problem was just that I didn't have the right clothing for wind and rain and cold, and so I just started buying gear that would get me through the winter, and I am now an all-weather walker.
An all-weather walker.
And an all-weather camper, because I've started camping every month.
Okay.
And my plan is to kind of camp at least once a month throughout the year.
Yes.
So we shall see.
And when you go camping, where do you wild camp, or do you go to a campsite?
I have gone wild camping, but usually when I do my monthly camp, I go to a campsite, which in the winter is deliciously empty.
Yes, yes.
Because no one else seems to like to go camping in the winter. It's kind of been my survival thing for this COVID year that seems to never end, you know? Mental health has been a bit shaky this year. I've been really stressed, lots of anxiety. So it's kind of my thing that gets me through.
Does it? It's
life.
Just...
Yeah, like I'll go to the library before and I get a stack of library books. And I just sit by my campsite and read, go for a run for about an hour or two, come back, take a shower, read some more.
So you basically, you just transfer your bricks and mortar home to being a home of a tarpaulin or whatever it is for a few days.
Yes, and it's so nice to just be outdoors, even if I'm not doing much.
Yeah.
It's just nice to relax in the outdoors because I'm so used to either running or hiking or walking or doing things in the outdoors, and it's nice to just sit in the outdoors, you know? It's a very different experience.
Because some people, I'd say me included, when you're new to camping and all the sounds that you hear, particularly at night, they can cause anxiety in themselves. Do they cause you anxiety?
No, they don't. I mean, I think since I'm in a campground, even though I'm pretty much the only person there, I feel safe.
Yes.
I mean, in terms of people sounds, I feel safe. And in terms of animal sounds, I've done a lot of outdoors classes and wildlife classes, so I kind of know the sounds the different animals make.
Yes.
So if I hear something at 3 o'clock in the morning snuffling outside of my tent, you know, I can kind of
identify
guess what
it. Oh, that's
and I think we're also very, very lucky in this country that we're very safe in terms of animals.
Yes.
We don't have bears, we don't have mountain lions.
Snakes.
Yeah.
Well, we do have snakes, but not...
We do, but they're not aggressive. I mean, they're not going to come into my tent at night. So I feel pretty safe.
Yes. Compare this to where you were brought up in California. Did you camp at all when you were a child or growing up? Never.
My parents never took me camping as a child. The only time I ever went camping in California was when I was in university. Bunch of friends who had grown up camping. I went camping with them once. Hired a sleeping bag from the university. They had this outdoor shop where you could just rent things.
Yes.
And I loved it. It was great. We went to a campsite. I'd never done that before. I slept without a tent, just under the stars. It was great weather.
Beautiful.
It was just really lovely.
Yes. Yeah.
But then I never did it again until I moved here.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just your life took you in
me in a different
direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you spent time in South America as well, and Central America too.
Yes.
In Costa Rica and
in Mexico for 8 years, Argentina for 5 years, Spain for a year, Costa Rica for several months.
And that was all for work, or what took you to those places?
So it started out being for school. So I studied abroad in Spain for a year when I was in university.
Okay.
And then when I was in graduate school getting my master's, which I never finished, I studied abroad in Mexico. And then in between my bachelor's degree and my master's, I went to Costa Rica to teach English.
Okay.
And then moved back to Mexico, which is where I started my first business with a business partner. And then from there we moved down to Argentina.
Okay, and the business was in
eco hotels.
Interesting. Oh my goodness!
So like very rustic huts on the beach.
Wow, fantastic! And was that a successful enterprise?
Oh, it was. It was also very difficult running a business like that in Mexico.
Yes.
Very stressful.
Where were you in Mexico? Right on the coast?
Yes.
Or? Beautiful.
So I was in Tulum, which has changed a lot since then.
Yes.
So this was from 1999 to 2008.
Okay.
2009. Yeah, 2009. 1999 to 2009. So it's a decade.
Yes.
And it was gorgeous because I don't know what Tulum is like now, but I know it's changed a lot. There was no electricity, no running water. We had to get water trucked in every day.
Oh my goodness.
We had to get ice for the ice chests. Where did that dog come from?
I don't know. It's in a hurry.
And yeah, I mean, had candles at night. You know, if you wanted to
Oh.
read a book, you had to light a bunch of candles.
Yes.
It was really lovely because it was in the jungle by the sea. So you had the greenness of all the jungle, the lush palm trees, and then you had the sea. So it was a really nice combination.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a place I've been to, but it's on the list to try and get there. Possibly this year. Well,
Ooh.
2020, not this year, because
Yeah.
there's only 2 days left, but 2022. But yeah, I hear it has become very popular
Yes.
and as a place, as a destination,
Yes.
not just to holiday in, but actually to live in,
Yes,
particularly
yes.
amongst the kind of bohemian
Yes,
artists
yes, very
and-
much.
Yeah, yes. So the difficulty of running a business, or the stress of running a business, which I know all about, obviously has its fantastic moments, but in the end you decided to wind that up, did you?
So yes, I split from my business partner. He's still running the business.
In Tulum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's still going. I'm just not participating.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in 2010 I moved here
Mm-hmm.
and completely rebooted my life.
Wow. That's quite a brave thing to do, to come to somewhere so very different
Yes.
and unpredictable weather-wise and
Yeah.
culturally very different too, but probably not so
Well-
much from compared to America.
Yeah, no, on the contrary, I was speaking English for the first time in like 14 years. That was so fantastic because
Yeah.
I'm fluent in Spanish. You know, I speak it every day at home with my husband, but it's not the same as speaking your native language.
Yes.
And so when I came here, it was like I kind of bloomed. It was like I could fully function in my native language.
Right.
Yes, the language is different. It's not American English. Obviously, it's different,
Yes.
but it's similar enough. And the culture is much, well, I hate to say this, but it's certainly closer to American culture than Argentinian culture or Mexican culture or Costa Rica. Like,
course, yeah.
so there were certain familiar things. It was like a new phase of my life where I just kind of blossomed, and I trained as a coach, and I started doing Toastmasters, which is where I met Adam.
Yes.
And yeah, it was like I started doing all these personal growth things, and I don't know, life just kind of went, ooh.
And here you feel very settled now, or do you still
Yes.
have the idea to go back to California one
No,
day?
I renounced my U.S. citizenship a couple years ago, so
Oh,
that's
did
no
you?
longer an option for me.
Okay,
I
so-
am a British citizen 100%.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you. There's no going back now.
Well, it's very nice to see that it's you that's introducing me to the North Downs way, you know, so things that I should know about myself. But the South Downs way is actually quite close
I
to
love
where my mother is, and
Mm.
so on our doorstep there, which is beautiful. Going from, I think it's
Oh,
West
that's such a nice area.
Eastdean, and then you're
Mhm.
walking over the chalk
Yes.
hills there,
That's so magical.
right by the coast,
Yes.
right by the edge of
Yes.
England, really.
Yes.
So becoming a coach
Yes.
and getting involved with people on a more of a spiritual level.
Yes.
What took you particularly in that direction? Was it a combination of walking and getting into nature and recognizing that was the key to how you could communicate with people, or was it?
That's a good question. So when I moved here, I had no job, I had no business, I had nothing, and my husband was the same. Like, we just burned all our bridges and moved here.
Okay.
Um,
And is he from Mexico?
He's from Argentina.
He's from Argentina, okay.
Yeah. So I was trying to get a job as like a marketing manager. My background was in online marketing for the hospitality industry, so it was like, but I'd always been self-employed, so how did I get a job in that? And I didn't know what to do. And I started blogging. I'd been blogging for a few years, and I just didn't know what to do. And then I was chatting with a friend, and she said, "Oh, but you're really good with like helping people. You could be like a mentor." And I hadn't, I'd come from Latin America where coaching wasn't a thing yet. And so I didn't know, I didn't have the language to think, oh, I want to be a coach.
Okay.
Somehow, after much Googling, I discovered this concept of coaching.
Yes.
And I trained as a coach and just loved it. And it's kind of served as the foundation for everything that I've done since then, because I've helped people with business coaching and business mindset coaching and publishing coaching, but also when I write my books about walking and adventures, the underpinning theme is like, how is this changing your life? How is this going to help you? What are you going to get out of it? So it's definitely given me skills that have helped everything that I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So the kind of people that are attracted to your form of coaching, are they very outdoorsy people already?
Well,
I mean, or are you introducing them to nature as you coach them?
So I'm not really doing the coaching anymore. It was something that I was doing for a while, but more business coaching.
Okay.
But who knows? I love coaching, and I love just like asking people questions, and I love like being open and curious and getting to know them and helping them get clarity. So I feel like it's going to come back into my life at some point, or into my business, but at the moment I'm not officially coaching.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that's it in terms of what's been happening over the last couple of years with people moving away from working in offices and working by themselves, and so much almost downtime with themselves, and with that can open many doors down dark passages. And the skeletons start shaking around, and because before you're so busy commuting and you're on the hamster wheel of that you actually have no time to
reflect,
think. And it's interesting. I think a lot of people are dealing with mental health issues because of that, because suddenly they're confronted with things that they've pushed in a cupboard and either mentally blocked, or because they're so busy they just said, thought, oh well, I'll deal with that at some other time
when I have time.
And therefore I think this sort of the whole idea of coaching, and it will probably take on in a different way as well.
Yeah, I think so, because coaching is really great. It's just, someone, a professional who knows how to ask questions, really, but in asking those questions they can help you get clarity on what it is that you want. Because I think it's so easy to get focused on what you don't want. Like, I don't want this job, I don't want this partner, I don't want this, I'm not happy. But it can be hard to stop thinking about what you don't want and shift your vision towards what you do want. So a lot of the mindset coaching that I did was about that. Okay. What do you want instead of what you have? And I think, getting back to long distance walking, that's another thing that you get, is time and space to be with yourself.
Definitely.
To see what comes up to light.
Yes.
And hours to reflect on it.
Definitely. But I've done long distance walking. I've never long distance walked by myself, although I may spend the day walking myself. I'm normally either with friends or with my partner, and he's walking and I walk, and we walk separately, and then we come back together. But I find, people say this is a great time, Emma, to reflect, to think, and I find when I'm walking, my mind's a total blank. Nothing comes into it at all. And I'm always amazed by these people having these revelations. And thinking, how come there's clearly nothing going on in my head, even though I know I have some major things I need to resolve. And
maybe you just need more walking.
Perhaps I haven't walked far enough.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it is.
But that's also nice too, to be in that space where not much is going on. It's almost like meditating.
Sure, maybe that is what it is. Well, I love that fact of being so in nature and just observing what's going on around me. And sometimes there's absolutely nothing going on around, but other times you're aware just of the small, like the ants or the textures of the tree trunks or whatever it is, and the differences. You're looking at the comparisons between how it is here in the UK, and for me, generally a lot of my walking has been
in Spain.
Abroad. Yes, in Spain and Portugal.
Oh, nice.
So that's this whole idea of being in nature, Holly, and your connection to nature led you to write the book If the Trees Could Talk.
Yes.
If I've got that right.
If
the
Trees
title.
Could Talk, yes.
Trees Could Talk.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Oh, that was a complete departure from everything I had done before. So I was on this forest bathing meetup, and I had never done forest bathing before. So
horse bathing.
Forest bathing.
Oh, forest.
Sorry.
Horse bathing.
Sorry. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm sure that's fun too. Forest bathing.
Yes.
Which is where you go into nature and you slow down, and you walk really slowly, and in silence, and you listen, and you smell, and you taste, if you can taste. And you kind of connect to the forest with all your senses. So towards the end, we were up on Newlands Corner, which is on the North Downs Way, but further that way.
Yes.
We were in this yew grove, and I said, pick a yew tree. And the second she said that, this yew tree kind of popped out, and I was like, that's mine. And so I went over to it, and I'd already been communicating with trees before then. So this wasn't a shock to me that it spoke to me. But it said, you're working on this book and it's not going well, which is true. We have an idea for a book that would be really easy for you to write. And he said, trees have stories and people need to hear our stories. And you could write this book. And I was like, oh, that sounds really exciting. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, I was like, this is a great idea. I can collect the stories of trees and put it in a book. And it was the middle of winter at the time. I think it was like January. So I waited until...
How did your husband react to this
idea?
idea?
He thought it was great. He's very supportive of all my weird things.
So. Excellent.
Yeah. And he actually ended up translating my book into Spanish. So now he really feels connected with the trees.
Right.
So we started working on the book in springtime. And at the start, I had no idea what to expect. I was like, are they going to give me like fairy tales? What is this going to be? And it wasn't. It was all kind of personal development stuff. It was like how to connect with nature so you can connect with yourself.
Yes.
So each tree had kind of a different message and a different little exercise you could do with the trees, whether it's like feeling the energy of the tree, or one tree talked about how you can give your worries to the trees, stuff like that. So it was really interesting. So I collected the stories of 28 trees.
Yes. It all in a particular area.
So a lot of them here in Surrey. A lot of them near the Avebury area, because I love Avebury and I spent a lot of time there.
With the standing stones of Avebury, yes.
And a couple of them in Somerset. Yeah, but mostly Surrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you drawn to particular types of tree? And did you actually know what these trees were? Were you already familiar, or did you have to go and find out what tree you were going up to?
I knew what a lot of them were, but some of them I wasn't sure. So there's a Norway maple back behind us that was one of the first trees in the book, and I wasn't sure whether it was a sycamore or a Norway maple. So I had to do some research for that, and there were a couple of other trees that I had to ask about. But there were a lot of them were just kind of yew, which is very easy to recognize. Yeah. Oak, which is easy to recognize. Lots of sycamores. Hawthorn, which is easy.
Yes. So, and is there one that we'll be walking past that's a favourite of yours?
We won't be walking past one today, but near where we started was one of the ones that was talking about how you can use the trees to take your worries.
Was that the oak tree that you pointed?
Yes, the oak tree that I pointed at.
Maybe we'll walk back that way,
yes.
So we'll go and say hello to it on the...
See if it has a message for us.
Yes. So having written the book, I know it got quite a lot of reaction, and you did a few TV broadcasts, and you were with Bill Bailey, you did a little thing with him. And has it run its course? Do you find people still wanting to connect to you to say, take me on a tree walk? And
well, no, I haven't had that so much, but I've had a lot of people, because the book sells to people all over the world, not just here.
Of course, yes.
But I've had a lot of people contact me and say, thank you so much for writing this book. Should we go up or down?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a bit boggy, isn't it? Oh, sorry, you're right.
Yeah, it's good. So I've had people contact me and say, I didn't know this was a thing. Like, I've heard the trees before, but I thought it was just me. Thank you so much for writing this so I know I'm not crazy. Things like that.
So people who are interested in learning more about this, they can find your book on your website, obviously, and we'll give them all the details at the end here. Yeah. And apart from the trees, you also have written quite a few self-help guides, like how to connect with yourself and nature and everything. And has that's all... Oops. We both tumbled down the hillside. Oops. Were those all spin-offs, as it were, of your tree?
No, those were spin-offs from the podcast, actually. I did a series of 5 short reads books.
Yes.
Which are just ebooks. I haven't done paperbacks. They were spin-offs from podcast episodes.
Okay.
Because I was experimenting with really short books designed to be read in about a half an hour, where people can just kind of get some ideas on how they can change their life.
Yes.
Without getting bogged down in reading hundreds of pages.
Okay.
Just read this thing, get inspired, try something new, and then go do it.
Right. And this is all within the Into the Woods podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And this is from a year or so ago?
Yeah, those books were from last summer, I think.
Okay. And did you then podcast interview with a number of people who'd read it and you had a discussion about it, or how did...
The books?
Yeah.
No, so the podcast, so what I did was solo episodes for the podcast,
Yes.
which were then turned into books.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello. There's quite a lot of people out today,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I'm
Considering
impressed. Good to see people out.
I know. Still walking off their turkey. Whoops! Still walking off their turkey, I think.
I think so.
So, Holly, as well as... Oh,
We've got some shooting today.
Yeah. Grouse shooting or whatever.
Yeah.
Hello there. So, as well as all of these different activities, you have become a member of...
Obod.
Obod.
Yes.
Is it Obod? Or?
Yes, Obod, the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids.
And how... I mean, I had a look at their website.
Yes.
As I know, I have to admit, I know very little about the world of bards, ovates and druids. In fact, what drew you into this world? Because I mean, I can see the connection, having looked at the website, about being more in touch with nature.
Yes.
But there's more to it than just that, obviously.
Yeah, well, it makes sense now, but at the time I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. So I'd been... Yeah, let's go higher.
Whoops.
So I was in a spiritual group for about 12 years, a Sufi group, and feeling like I was happy with the group, but I felt like I needed something more. I felt like I needed something nature-based. I felt like I needed something to kind of explain the spiritual connection that I felt with nature.
Yes.
But I didn't know what that was. So I was Googling like pagan stuff and talking to friends and had no idea. And somehow just kept coming across the word druid. Like it kept popping up, not even when I was researching, just randomly.
Yes.
And it kind of had the zing to it. Like it was kind of like, pay attention, look into this. So there's a part of my brain that was like, this is what you need to look at. And finally, I was reading these novels by this New Zealand author called Juliette Marillier, who writes historical fantasy.
Yes.
And I had just fallen in love with her books. And I was like, who's this woman? How have I never heard of her before? Like, how am I just now discovering this? And when I read her bio, at the end of her bio, it said that she was a member of the Druid Order Obod. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. But when I went and found their website, I realized I had been on their website before.
Ah.
But somehow it hadn't,
Registered.
I don't know, it hadn't registered. And this time I was looking at it and I was like, here's how you become a member and here's how you start studying with them. And I clicked and I bought the program and started the Bardic grade. And it was exactly what I needed.
So how far into it are you at this stage?
So I finished the Bardic grade in about a year, and I'm in the Ovate grade now.
Okay.
Yes.
And so it's a graded learning process.
Yes.
To Druid or Druidress. Druidess.
Yes.
Or just Druid.
Both. I think people use both. Yeah. So it's kind of three phases: Bardic phase, the Ovate grade, and the Druid grade.
Okay, and I was quite interested to learn that there's actually traditions that have come from the west coast of Ireland, from Cornwall, the west coast of France, particularly Breton region, and how they've culminated in almost a resurgence of wanting to understand that time of Druidry, if that's the right word to use, even though it's different to a similar idea of, for example, with the Aborigines and Dreamtime. It hasn't been passed down in time verbally. It's had to be rediscovered in a way.
Exactly. Well, sadly, when the Romans came, I mean, this is a modern version of what we suppose the ancient spirituality of this land was for thousands of years. And then came the Romans with the Christianity and kind of pushed everything underground.
Yes.
And so we don't have that lineage. It was broken.
Yes.
Or it just hasn't, we don't have records of it.
Yes.
It wasn't safe. So yeah, this is a reimagining of what it might have been like, adapted for modern times.
And do you celebrate the summer solstice and the winter solstice and go to Avebury or to or another sacred site?
A private ceremony myself, kind of here in the local land.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll go to Avebury. Avebury is really one of my favorite places in the world.
Is it?
Yeah, I love it.
And is it something that's very much interesting to young and old people at the moment? I mean, who's been attracted to it?
To Druidry or to?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So OBOD has 2 gatherings a year, the summer gathering and the winter gathering. But of course we haven't met up for 2 years because of COVID.
Yes.
But I would say there's a mix of ages, but I would say more people in their 40s, 50s and 60s than there are young people.
Okay.
But that's just people who go to the gatherings.
Yes.
I don't know who's studying quietly at home
Yes, yes.
that might not be able to travel to England, because there are members all over the world.
Right. And is this something that you would feel you would want to connect with people from other places when you travel?
Ah, that's a good question. Having not been out of the country in the last 2 years,
Yes.
it's so hard to conceive the concept of travel.
I mean, it's whether it's one of these things where you feel it very personally with nature, and it's just between you and nature, or is it something about the community of it that makes it important for you?
People always joke that OBOD is a community made up of people who don't like community and want to be alone.
Okay.
So people really enjoy it when we do come together, and I do enjoy going to gatherings, but the rest of the year I tend to kind of just do my own thing on my own.
Yes.
Like, I really like that we have that self-study aspect of the courses, and if you do want to meet up with people, you can.
Yes, yes. Okay. So the whole practice of Druidry,
Yes.
how is that influencing you and how you see the world now?
That's a really good question. I think it's connected me more to kind of the old folk tales and the spiritual stories that are very nature-based. And, we learn about different sacred sites and ancient sites, and I just feel more, I don't know, like I have more of a framework to understand this deep connection that I feel with nature, because it's not just like, oh, I like being outdoors, I like going on walks, I like the trees. It just really feeds my soul, and I just feel this connection that's just very deep.
And I wonder if that is because of your familiarity and love of British nature.
Yes.
And the world that surrounds it.
Yeah, I think so.
Rather than, I wonder whether if you now went to California and were in nature there, how you would react to that, or whether it would be, you'd have the same connection.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I did like to go hiking a lot when I was in high school. I lived right down the street from the state park, which was this mountain, and I liked it. But ever since I moved to this country, I'd never been to England before I moved here. Mm-hmm. But ever since I moved here, I just feel a connection to the land.
Yes.
That I can't really explain.
But maybe that's why the Druidry came about, because it's very much about...
Yes.
Yeah, it's not so much about Surrey, but it's about, as far as I understand, it's from my little Google, that it's more of the Cornish country. Obviously a lot of the British countryside is similar in many ways, but although very different in others.
Yes.
But it's because of this region that it is very geographically centred.
Yes.
Even though people may be Druids around the world.
Yes. It was kind of born in these lands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So for next year, 2022, what do you have in mind going forward? Can you envision where you want to be? I noticed that you have another book out, which is to do with helping you plan your year, not in the sense of a timetable, but but in terms of setting yourself, envisioning your year, and also this idea of the staycation, where you have a set project and are able to focus on just one thing.
Yes.
And has that happened or been influenced by the fact that you've needed that for you?
Yeah. So the workations happened quite by accident. I was traveling to Cardiff for this course, and I arrived a day early.
Yeah.
And
hello there. Hi.
Pulled up my computer to just get some work done, and I got through my inbox in record time. Like, it was amazing. Like, my level of focus was just off the charts.
Okay.
And so I thought, I wonder if I tried this again.
There's a big group there. Yeah. Dogs and hello there. Hi.
Hi. So I booked a hotel for the following month just to get some work done. And the same thing happened. It was like amazing levels of focus.
Yes.
And I just blasted through whatever project it was I brought with me. And so I started doing monthly workations to work on creative projects.
Yes.
Usually a book. Sometimes one time I redid my entire website. That kind of thing.
Yes.
So that's my workations. And then the year you want, which is the kind of journal workbook that you mentioned, that just came out of my own process that I use every year to try to envision what I want to experience in the coming year. To kind of evaluate what the current year has been like, what was good, what was not, and how do I want to change things.
Yes.
And what do I want to experience in the new year.
Okay. And this is something that you start on the 1st of January, or do you find yourself in this period of rest and recuperation that many people have to have around this festive period, whether it's festive for some and it's not for others, but it's the fact it's a holiday period, that it's a chance to reevaluate, or is it your time just to rest your mind and not even think about it?
So usually, interestingly, I tend to do it around October.
Okay.
So the end of October is Samhain, which is the pagan New Year.
Okay.
And just energetically, I tend to feel around that time of year about wrapping things up and planning the new year. This year, however, I'm very much in kind of the recovery phase. Like, I feel like I've just spent the holidays resting, reading, and not quite yet ready to envision next year.
Okay.
So I have some plans.
Yes.
Kind of some big events and things, but I don't have the details planned.
My birthday's in January,
Oh,
and
nice.
I find, because it's so close to Christmas and then New Year and everything, for me, my New Year actually doesn't begin until after my birthday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's when I start to see the year progressing. So it's not related to any other calendar except for my birth calendar, I suppose. But I wonder whether it would be the same for somebody born in May or June, or maybe it is, I don't know. But
Well, I think it can be. I think it just depends on how you see the year. I think the birthday is, it's another rotation around the sun, and it is a new year for you.
Yeah.
So, I think it can be.
Oh, we're very lucky. The wind has stopped totally, isn't it? It's like a completely different day to this morning. It was stormy and completely horrible.
And it's dry, it's not raining.
Yes, that's fantastic. So how often do you go out walking long distance?
Not as much as I would like.
Yeah.
So the last time I did a long distance trail was when I walked the Ridgeway for the second time last year in September.
And the Ridgeway runs from?
Runs from Avebury in the west to Ivinghoe Beacon in the east, up in the Chilterns.
Okay, it's not a route I've been on at all.
It's so nice.
Is it?
I love the Ridgeway. It has a special place in my heart. They call it Britain's oldest road. So it's estimated that route was walked for the last 5,000 years, possibly more. So you're going along the ridge, the western part, and then it kind of drops down into woodlands and things. But there's so many ancient sites, whether it's the Stone Circle of Avebury or Wayland Smithy, which is a long barrow, hill forts all along the way.
Oh gosh, okay.
It just feels like you're walking through ancient land where people have lived for thousands of years, and it just feels very magical.
Yeah, I find it quite fascinating when I talk to some people about walking and where they walk, particularly when they're walking by themselves.
Yeah.
And that some places they go into, whether it's a wood or a forest or somewhere, where suddenly they feel totally spooked.
Oh, yes.
And they feel the energy that is actually not a good energy.
Yeah.
And do you find that at all? Have you experienced that and felt that you've got to get out of here? It's not where I'm meant to be? Interestingly,
yes, but I don't think it was necessarily that I wasn't meant to be there. I think it's just something showed up that I couldn't see, and it freaked me out. And that's a story that's in my book, If Trees Could Talk, because I was visiting one of the trees for the book, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. I was deep in Savernake Forest with this tree called King of Limbs, with ancient oak, and it was just gorgeous, and I was so enjoying it. And I was in the middle of nowhere. I hadn't seen another person for a couple of hours, totally just enjoying the experience, and then all of a sudden, it was like the energy shifted, and it freaked me out. And I actually stood up and I did a full circle around the tree to see who was there, but I couldn't.
Yes.
It wasn't a physical being. It just really creeped me out, and I just felt like, I don't know what this is, I don't understand it, but I think I'll go.
Right.
But I was navigating using my phone, using the OS maps on my phone.
Yes.
And I clicked on my phone, and it had about 40% battery. When I came to that site, it went to 0. It went from 40% to 0, and of course that freaked me out even more because I was like, it was fine. I haven't had problems with my battery, and so I just hightailed it out of there, and I ended up finding my way back. But yeah.
But it's instinct as well, that just whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, what I was saying to you the other day when I was chatting to you about instinct. Sometimes you don't know why.
Yeah.
But your instinct says you shouldn't be here, or it's time to go. And you, even though it may be perfectly fine, but you just remove yourself because your instinct's telling you something different.
Yes.
And you can fight your instinct, and quite often if you do, something happens.
But conversely, there are certain places where the first time I've gone there, I felt like such a strong connection to the place. And I just find myself going back and going back and going back. And also, I don't really understand that. I just find myself being drawn to certain places. So, so the North Downs Way continues that way. I need to get back on the other side of here.
There we go. Do a little pirouette around.
So when I was walking the Ridgeway the first time, I visited West Kennet Long Barrow, which is, of course, an ancient tomb. I think it's 5,500 years old. And the second I walked in there, because it's been kind of restored and you can go inside the chambers, and I just felt like, there's something special here. I don't know what it is. This is a tomb. Dead people were buried here. I don't understand it, but I love this place, and I found myself going back over and over and over again.
Interesting.
So.
And the tree where you were freaked out.
Yes.
Have you actually gone back there since? You have.
I have.
And have you gone? The first time you went back, did you go back slightly nervously, or did you go back just with a very positive energy, saying that was then and this is now?
Yeah. So I had the very clear sensation that it wasn't the place that had something off about it. It was something that had showed up energetically. And so I knew it was kind of that thing at that place at that time.
Yes.
It was near Samhain, which is when the energies, the veil is supposed to be thin between the worlds. So you can sometimes sense things that you wouldn't at other times of the year.
Yes.
So when I returned, it was just a random time of the year. Talked to the tree about it, and the tree was like, yes, you're right. Something showed up. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't dangerous. But you had never experienced this before, and that's why you were scared.
Okay.
And it said you could have stayed and it would have been fine.
Yes.
But also you were fine leaving, so.
Yes. I was reading just yesterday, by pure chance, I don't even know why I ended up reading about it, Apophis is a meteorite.
Sorry listeners, I meant to say asteroid, not meteorite.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to have, basically smashed Earth apart, but it's now been shown that it's on a different trajectory, but it's going to actually come very, very close to Earth in 2029. And I wonder, with these kind of happenings, does that have an effect on you? Are you aware of it, or does it just, obviously you're not aware of this because I was just talking, but when you're made aware of something like that, do you prepare for that in some way?
Well, now I want to go home and research this thing. I feel very connected to Earth energies. Mm-hmm. And so I feel kind of very connected to what's going on here.
Yes.
And I'm very much fascinated by other planets and things out in space, but I don't know much about it, and I don't research it very much. So I find it interesting, but it's not something that I'm consciously aware of.
Sure. Are you influenced by the cycle of the moon, for example? And like the big moons and the...
I'm sure I am, but it's not something I've ever paid attention to.
Okay.
It's always something that I like. Whenever it comes up in conversation, I think, oh yes, I'd like to pay attention to that, but I don't. So probably I am, but I don't know how, because it's not something that I kind of chart and keep track of. And
yes. There's only so much you can. Can't you? You'd never do anything, would you?
Yeah.
So as well as the trees,
yes,
your connection to plants and flowers. Obviously we all have a connection.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't, but I feel I do, to plants and flowers, to texture, to colour, to smell.
Yes.
Basically, they all heighten your senses one way or another. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how, in the way you view and observe plants and flowers in relation to how you observe and feel the energy from trees, does it differ, and how?
That's a really good question. And I think it does differ I think each species is different. So a couple of years ago I did a plant spirit healing apprenticeship. So working with the spirits of plants for healing rather than the actual physical parts of plants.
Okay.
So that was when I kind of stepped up my plant communication rather than just tree communication. And I really got this distinct sense that different plants are here to help us with different things, spiritually as well as physically.
Yes.
So,
for example?
For example, lavender is very much about helping you connect with self-love and self-care and helping you to improve your relationship with yourself. Mm-hmm. Rose is very much about all kinds of relationships.
Yes.
Tulsi, which is the holy basil, is good for working with past lives, soul contracts, that kind of thing. So, yeah, they all kind of have their special healing topic.
And does that influence what you plant in your garden?
I have a very small garden. It doesn't get as much sunshine as I would need to plant all the things I want to plant. It does a little bit, yes.
So if you could only plant 10, or maybe let's go 5.
Okay.
5 plants, what would they be for you, which would give you?
Definitely lavender. Mm-hmm. Mugwort. I love mugwort. Of course, we have that growing wild here, but it's just a plant that I absolutely love.
Yes.
Rose, definitely.
But which colour? And what type of rose?
I have a rose in my garden now, and it's yellow, and I just love yellow roses.
Yes,
they're so sunny.
Yes.
So that's 3. Mm-hmm. See, my mind goes to trees now.
Okay,
trees
well, you could plant a tree.
Yes, definitely. Well, my 3 favorite trees are yew, oak, and holly.
Okay.
So I'll take 3 trees.
After your name?
Yes, yes.
Actually, did your parents name you Holly for any particular reason?
No, my mother just liked the name.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's
nothing significant.
There's no connection between how you now view the world and life and how they did?
No. My father was very much into gardening. Mm-hmm. So he passed away when I was 6, but he always had a vegetable garden. Mm. He had a line of roses, every summer tomatoes. And my grandmother was really into flower gardening.
Yes.
That's probably where I got some of my love for plants from.
Yes. It was probably within you. It's those first 6 years, isn't it, they say?
Yeah.
It's entrenched within you. So, well, now it's opening out from...
Yes, it is.
These are the old the teasels, or they're called something else.
Yes.
I love them. They're very... sort of like architecture in the landscape.
They are. They're nice, and they're quite tall, some of them.
Yes.
So we've got a nice view again.
It's so quiet as well, so we're almost between, this is the North Downs, and then what's over there? Is this all National Trust?
No, so we've got, these are private farms, and then up where, I can't really see the tower from this angle, but up on those hills is all National Trust again. You've got Leaf Hill, which is National Trust property.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what time sunset is tonight.
Oh, that's a very good question.
It must be around, I think...
around 4-ish.
Do we do a complete circle?
No, I think we need to turn around and head back.
I don't know how far we've moved on.
We've come a ways. Let's see, sunset. Yes, exactly 4 o'clock.
Exactly 4 o'clock.
Yes, so time to head back.
Maybe we should head back down the path.
Listeners, don't do what we just did and always know when sunset is before you head out.
It's still quite high. The sun's still quite high in the sky. So, and we're on a path. A bit of a muddy, sludgy one.
Yeah.
So of all the questions that I've been asking you, is there anything that you feel I should have asked you and I haven't, or that you would like to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I'm just, I'm really excited about future adventures, and there's just not enough time to do all the walks that I want to do and all the runs that I want to do. And
the walking is very much something that you just want to do in this country, or do you have the idea to do long distance walking in Europe and
Spain? I've been wanting to walk the Camino since 1996. Wow. When I first heard about it, and I've not yet done it.
Oh gosh!
So it's calling to you. It's been calling to me for decades. 25
but the
years.
moment will just come, won't it? When it will feel right.
So
Adam says, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's been calling to me for years, and there's going to be a point where I just know it's time.
I think the thing is that it's to have enough time to do it in a one-hour.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to do it in chunks.
So who's done other parts of Caminos in 1 and 2 week periods, but I think the real one, either the Norte or the Camino Frances, have to be done in a 1 hour.
Yeah, that's how I want to do it, so we shall see. Last year I had booked to do the Camino Portugues, and it was right before COVID.
Yes.
And I had to cancel because of COVID.
So Steve and I walked part of it.
Yes.
Just before that, also in 2019. Yes. And then we did the second half this year.
Yeah, how was that?
For the week from the Spanish border to Portuguese-Spanish border to Santiago. And it was fine. It was, we had no problem getting into places, although people now are booking, which kind of defeats the whole object of walking and just stopping when the moment is right. But I think it's just this current period is making people more nervous. So we just turned up a couple of times, but other times we did book, and but it was fine. It was okay. But interestingly, the experience I expected to have arriving in Santiago didn't happen.
Really?
No. But 2 minutes later, these Italian guys came up to us and said, "Look, we've got a couple of mates who can't go on the roof walk. Oh. Would you like our tickets?"
Oh.
We just looked at them, and we just arrived literally with our rucksacks and everything, and said, "Yes, we'd love to." And so within 5 minutes of arriving in Santiago, we were on the roof of the cathedral.
Oh, nice.
And that
was when it hit
was my magical moment. Being a building surveyor, conservation.
Yes.
And you could see on top of there was the original stone pilgrim tub or bath that the pilgrims, when they arrived in Santiago, used to come up onto the roof of the cathedral. It's always been open to pilgrims, and it's like it's stone stepped rooftop, and they used to basically strip their clothes off because they were stinking by that point, and their clothes were burnt, and then they were given clean clothes.
Oh, lovely.
So that was really,
Oh, I like that.
Yes, although we didn't do that. Although probably they wanted us to do that. We just arrived. Everyone else were clean. They didn't even look like they were pilgrims, but we had just arrived. But anyway.
I think it can be disappointing, the end of a walk.
Yes.
You know, you've been walking towards this destination, and then finally you get there, and it's like you expect this epiphany and like fireworks in your head or something, and sometimes it's like, oh, here I am.
Yeah, yes, I've arrived.
And it's
That's
like
an anticlimax.
Exactly, and it's like you're so sad the journey's over, but yet so excited that I don't know. It's like a roller coaster of emotions for me, and most of them are not positive.
But I think it's probably because, I don't know, for me certainly when I'm walking, even though I tend to have a blank brain, nothing going in there.
Your meditation
yes, I have sort of really lovely moments on the way. Yeah. So it's not that I'm just looking towards the end goal.
Yeah.
In fact, when you know the end is coming, you almost want to drag your feet
yes.
just to make it last a little bit longer, you know?
Yes, always.
Except if it's pouring with rain, obviously.
Yeah.
You're drenched. But I think that's why I need to walk the full Camino.
Yeah.
I have unfinished business with the Camino trail.
Also, I've never done a walk longer than 1 week. And I feel like I'm craving more.
Yes.
So next year, some friends and I, and this is going to be a really interesting experience because I've never done a long distance trail with other people, but 3 friends and I are going to walk the coast to coast.
Oh, brilliant.
And we are going to backpack it. We're going to wild camp and, do the whole experience.
And which way are you going to walk from?
So west to east.
West to east, which is the way I did it. And I did it quite a long time ago when the trails weren't marked. And I walked with 2 friends. We were all girls together and completely... is that...
does it close? Oh, yes, it does. Oh, but
does it
the other way.
Is it a spring thing?
Oh, there we go.
And we were hopeless at map reading. But luckily we did get too lost. And it was the most incredible experience, but you have to be prepared for the start, which is very steep in the Lake District. Stunningly beautiful, but be prepared for your leg muscles to ache like crazy. But that had a lovely sense of leaving the coast, saying cheerio to the sea, and then walking across basically the girth of England, and then arriving at the sea, and that did feel very special. Suddenly, that sense of one side to the other.
Yes.
So Oh, I look forward to hearing how that goes.
Well, I'm a bit nervous because I've never done this with other people. Like, what if it's hard? I mean, it's going to be challenging, but how do you deal with that when you're with other people, you know? Usually I can just have a cry to myself or complain to myself. And
you'll probably find that you'll some days just walk by yourself and then say, well, we'll meet at this point.
Yeah.
And then will you have your own tents?
Yes.
So you will get your own time when you get your tent. You'll be howling individually in your tents.
Yes.
Saying, I want to be by myself.
What am I doing?
What am I doing? No, I think it is a very different experience when you go with other people, but I think it's, all adventure and I think all travel that one does, whether it's with people or by yourself, it's a compromise.
Yeah.
You're even having to compromise with yourself quite often when you're walking, when you're doing things by yourself, because your brain's saying, one side's going, you must do this, and the other side's saying, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. Or you want to go on further, and then your sensible brain's saying, you should stop now.
Yes.
And again, it's all that compromise.
Yeah, it is. It's that bargaining with yourself.
It is.
Just a little bit more.
But it is stunning going across the Lake District and the Yorkshire Moors and the Yorkshire Dales.
Yeah, I haven't spent much time up north, so I'm really looking forward to it. It just feels so wild up there.
It is.
Which you don't get down here. I mean, I love where I live. I'm very grateful for all the trails down here, but it just doesn't have that wild feeling to it.
Yes. You have to watch out for the when the low-flying RAF aircraft go across the moors, and they come so low. Literally, the first time it happened, you hear them coming, and it's just and it thunders. The whole ground kind of vibrates, and I think we just all went to ground because we weren't quite sure what was happening. They were probably just having fun with us.
Probably.
3 girls out across the moors, and there was no one else around. That will be a fantastic walk to do.
Yeah, I'm very much looking
one of the
forward to it.
Wainwright trails.
Yes. Fungi.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Wow, look at the colour. It's
I know. It's really lovely. It's like lemon.
Yes, like a limey centre and yellow lemony.
Very nice.
Do you know what they are?
It's a kind of bracket fungi, but I'm not sure which one. I just finished my 7-month ethnobotany course, and we did a day of fungi, but we only did kind of the basic bracket fungi.
Because you've done a bit of foraging as well. Is it foraging?
Yeah, so that was part of the ethnobotany course. So we learned ethnobotany is the study of how humans use plants for different purposes. So we did foraging for eating, to create medicines, to dye clothes, just all kinds of uses for plants.
Yes.
So yeah, it was really lovely. We made baskets.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And is it something that you would use when you go out camping? Would you have would you trust yourself?
No, I don't think I could get enough calories in. It depends on the time of year, but no, I don't think I'd survive on just foraging alone.
What do you actually take with you when you go walking?
So I practice intermittent fasting.
Yes.
So depending on what fasting regime I'm following, usually I'm doing 1 meal a day.
Yes.
So I fast for 23 hours and I have 1 meal a day.
Yes.
However, I cannot resist the full English breakfast. And most places, like when you stay at a B&B, you've got the full English breakfast. So
yes.
I usually eat that, and then I'll have dinner.
Okay.
And then nothing for lunch.
Yes.
And then when I'm camping, I kind of have maybe like lunch and dinner. I find it hard to get like enough calories in one meal when I'm camping. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it depends.
Do you tend to take dried foods that you add water to, or or do you?
I do sometimes, or if I'm car camping, I'll take cans. Yeah. Because I'm just going to the campsite and I don't have to lug them around.
Yes.
Cheeses, like sausages, like dried sausages.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Okay. So Holly, what do you camp in?
I have a 1-person tent. It's a Terra Nova laser expedition. I think it is 1. Yeah, and it's really nice. It's got a big porch to put your backpack in.
Yes.
And then the inside is it's very comfortable for me as a small 5'3" human.
Yeah. And is it easy to put up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can get the whole thing set up in 10 minutes, including, my bed and my everything.
Okay. Oh, brilliant.
It's really easy to put together.
And you have to peg it down, obviously.
Yes.
But generally speaking, is it with the bendy pole thing?
It's with the bendy poles, and it's really stable. Like, I've read some reviews online that have said, oh, this is definitely not a winter tent. I disagree. And
Okay.
it definitely won't hold up in the wind. I disagree.
Okay.
I was, not last year, but the year before, I was on a camping trip with a friend.
Watch out, this is
And
very...
she was in a really nice 2-person Hilleberg tent, which is one of those really nice, expensive tents, and it kept blowing up.
Oh,
It kept,
gosh.
she kept getting out of her tent to restake it, and it
Oh,
was
no.
blowing. Finally, she left and went home at 5 o'clock in the morning. But my tent was fine. It's a really low-profile tent. It flaps a little bit and makes a little bit of noise in the wind, but it was fine.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
fine.
Okay, so sometimes expense doesn't equate to practicality.
Yeah, I don't know. I really love this tent. And I think it was a big, kind of a big investment for me when I first started camping, because I wasn't sure how much I was going to get into camping.
Yes.
But it was a very good investment.
Okay.
It served me well. Been on
Gosh.
many trips.
Bear that in mind when I eventually get around to camping one day.
Well, they make a 2-person version.
Okay,
Yeah, I really like it. I'm very happy with
I
it.
shall look it up. Anyway, we're going in as we blunder through the mud, just as the sun is setting, to the oak tree that Holly mentions in her book, If Trees Could Speak. Is that right? Did I
If
get
trees could talk.
If trees could talk.
Close.
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 And here it is.
Yeah, so this is one of the trees. This is a tree that I've always really enjoyed. Oh, look, it's got a little pool of water.
Oh,
It's a nice place to sit and rest when you're walking, and I don't know, I've just always had a really nice connection to this tree, so it kind of seemed natural that it would be in the book.
yes. And it has lovely big thick branches,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yes.
Feels like a grandpa, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. This is not grandfather tree. There is an oak tree that way that's called grandfather tree.
Mm-hmm.
This one I think we called Ranmore oak, because Ranmore
Common.
yeah. So yeah.
And even with no leaves, well, there's a few
Yeah, hanging on.
autumn leaves hanging on there. Feels like it's been here a long time.
That's nice, isn't it?
It's almost like I survey across my landscape,
Yes.
and it's got the valley below.
Yes. It's a tree with a view.
And I'm sure has lots of stories to tell. I reckon many people have sat underneath
Yes.
this tree, because at its base it almost has little seats to sit
Yes,
on,
it
doesn't
does.
it?
It does. I
From
kind of
its roots.
sit in between the little root bulges.
Yes.
That's quite nice.
Well, it's very nice to meet you, Mr. Tree, Mr. Oak Tree. Yeah, it's got a very thick, big trunk, hasn't
Yeah,
it? Like it's
yeah.
been, like it won't move. It's solid.
Yeah, it's very solid. Hopefully it'll be here for many more years to come.
Yeah. What would be your message to the tree tonight?
Well, thank you for joining us on this podcast. It was great to have you in my book, and great to have you here present with all of your listeners.
Yes. So if anybody's up at
Denby's Hillside.
Denby's hillside, come and visit the oak tree that we're standing under at the moment. Maybe it'll be springtime by the time
Yeah.
you get up here. So you come from the car park and hang a left, and it's there. It's
Yeah,
very
can't
easy
miss
to see. On its own, it doesn't have
Yeah.
any siblings or parents around it.
No.
It's just solidly on its own. Fantastic, just as sunsets, but we don't really have a sunset to
No, we
wow
don't.
about,
Yeah,
do we?
no, it's gone down already.
Yeah, the clouds are amassing. Probably, I think it's going to rain again tomorrow, sadly. But
Yeah, I think it's going to rain for the next 10 days.
Oh dear. Oh, well, we were lucky that we got the break in the
Yes.
rain for this. Holly, it's been really interesting just learning a little bit more about your life and all the different things that you're doing, and so many different skills to your hat. Feathers to your bow.
Yes.
That's probably better.
Feathers to my hat, strings to my bow.
Strings to your bow, yes. And who knows what skills you're going to be learning come
Yeah.
2022.
Ooh, I've only got one thing planned, so we shall see.
Yes. Keep us posted.
We'll do.
And if people want to know more about your books and where to buy them, where to find out about your podcast, because you also have a podcast,
Yes.
Into the Woods.
Yes, it's called Into the Woods. It's all about personal growth through outdoor adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's on my website. So it's hollyworton.com, Holly like the plant with a Y, and WORTON.com.
.com. So it's
Yes.
very simple, and everything is there, and you're
Everything's there. Links to the books, links to the podcast.
You're
blog.
on Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything's Holly Worton.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, well, I think unless you have anything else that you would like to mention.
No, thank you. It's been lovely. I really like this format of podcasting.
It's been really fun, and we've been very lucky with the weather in the end, when I thought we were going to have to abort the podcast mission. But thank you so much for spending the afternoon taking me on a walk through the North Downs Way.
Thank you for coming.
I managed to stay on my feet so far.
Yeah, we had some slips.
We did. Keep us posted on what
Will
you're up to. And to all you podcast listeners out there, I hope you have enjoyed our chat today, my chat with Holly Worton. If you have, please do share with your friends. If you could subscribe, that would be fantastic. And of course, do keep in touch and give me a rating or the podcast, the Travelling Through podcast, a rating and review. If you want to find out a bit more about what I'm up to, go to travellingthrough.co.uk. We'll have another podcast coming out next week. But for now, take care and thanks for listening.